Hello everyone, welcome to See Stew. Throughout the United States, statues honoring controversial figures have become flashpoints for public debate. Many argue these monuments glorify oppression, racism, and colonialism, making them painful symbols in today's society. In this video, we'll explore 5 statues that many believe should be torn down and discuss the reasons behind these calls for removal. Christopher Columbus statues. Christopher Columbus statues can be found across the United States, in cities like New York, Chicago, and many others. However, these statues have become highly controversial. While some people view Columbus as a symbol of exploration and discovery, others argue that celebrating him ignores the devastating impact his voyages had on indigenous communities. His arrival in the Americas marked the beginning of colonization, leading to the exploitation, enslavement, and displacement of native peoples. Many indigenous activists and their allies believe that these statues represent a legacy of violence, oppression, and cultural erasure. Protests and debates surrounding these monuments have intensified in recent years, with some communities opting to remove them entirely. For many, removing Columbus statues is not about erasing history, but about acknowledging the harm caused by his actions and rethinking who we honor in public spaces. Robert E. Lee Monument. The Robert E. Lee Monument has been a focal point of controversy for years. As the leading general of the Confederate Army during the Civil War, Lee symbolizes the South's fight to preserve slavery. While some view these statues as tributes to Southern heritage and military leadership, many others see them as painful reminders of racism, white supremacy, and the oppression of African Americans. The most prominent statue in Richmond, Virginia, was removed in 2021 following nationwide protests, but many other Lee statues remain scattered across the United States. Critics argue that these monuments glorify a past rooted in division and human suffering, promoting a false narrative of the Confederacy as honorable. For them, the removal of these statues is a necessary step towards reconciliation and justice, emphasizing the importance of confronting the realities of history rather than romanticizing them. Andrew Jackson statues. Andrew Jackson, the 7th President of the United States, is a deeply divisive figure in American history. The Trail of Tears, one of the most tragic episodes in U.S. history, occurred under Jackson's administration, resulting in the deaths and displacement of thousands of indigenous people. Statues of Jackson, such as the prominent one in Jackson Square, New Orleans, are seen by many as symbols of oppression, genocide, and racism. While some supporters argue that these monuments recognize his contributions as a military leader and populist president, many activists believe they glorify a legacy of violence. Calls for their removal reflect a growing awareness of the need to address historical wrongs and challenge public symbols that uphold narratives of conquest and racial superiority. Teddy Roosevelt statue from the American Museum of Natural History. The statue of Teddy Roosevelt that once stood at the entrance of the American Museum of Natural History in New York became a subject of intense debate. It depicted Roosevelt on horseback, with a Native American man and an African man walking beside him, a composition that many criticized as embodying racial hierarchy and colonial dominance. Statue of J. Marion Sims, father of modern gynecology. J. Marion Sims, often referred to as the father of modern gynecology, is a controversial figure whose medical advancements came at a significant human cost. His experiments were conducted on enslaved black women without anesthesia, raising serious ethical concerns. While Sims made lasting contributions to gynecology, such as developing surgical techniques for repairing obstetric fistulas, his methods reflect the exploitation of vulnerable populations. For many, statues honoring Sims represent a legacy of medical racism and disregard for human dignity. The statue of Sims, which once stood in Central Park, New York, faced increasing public outcry as awareness grew about the suffering endured by the women involved in his research. In 2018, the city removed the statue, acknowledging that monuments to figures with such unethical practices have no place in modern public spaces. This removal is part of a broader reckoning with historical injustices in the medical field and beyond. As the movement to reconsider public monuments grows, questions remain about how to confront history while fostering progress. Removing statues isn't about erasing history, but about reevaluating whom we choose to honor. What are your thoughts on these statues? Thanks for watching. Don't forget to subscribe to C-Stu for more exciting updates.